begin. Yes, Mr. Petro, it's important that I inform you that these proceedings are being recorded both by Zoom and excuse me, my screen just disappeared, so I need to go back and see what happened. There you go. It's being recorded both by Zoom and by the court reporter. So if there's an issue with being recorded, please inform us. If not, please raise your right hand so that you may be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today be the truth so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. You can put your hand down. The board itself and those with L&I will introduce themselves so you know with whom you're speaking. Then we will proceed to call the case. Again, I'm Kenneth Woodson, board chair.
Ralph Pinkett, board member.
Steve Pettit, board member.
Chris Woods, board member.
Michelle,
Okay.
Board's Administration.
Ed?
Yeah, Ed Jefferson, counsel for the board.
Okay, thank you. Who's representing the city in this matter?
I am members of the board. Thank you very much. Jeffrey Cohen for the city of Philadelphia and my assistant on this case. Dee, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Dejanay Davis. I'm here on behalf of the city of Philadelphia.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. Okay, Mr. Cohen?
All right, and I also have Mark Crawford, inspector for L&I, who we should swear in.
Okay. Mr. Crawford, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today be the truth so help you God? Okay, we can't hear you.
Better now? Can you hear me now?
Only barely. If you can turn it up a little more, it'd be better.
Like maximum. Let me see something.
Okay, well, if you could get close to the screen and I will swear you in again so we can all hear your response, okay? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today be the truth so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We heard that loud and clear. You can place your hand down, Mr. Cohen.
All right, I would like to start, if possible, by sharing my screen.
Okay,
Please bear with me one moment. All right, can everyone see the appeals packet that I have shared on my screen?
yes, could you just increase the size of it a bit?
How's that?
Better, yes.
All right, I'd actually like to start with the inspector. Inspector, if you could just state your name for the record and how many years you've been working with L&I and in what capacity.
Inspector Mark Crawford, City of Philadelphia, Code Enforcement Inspector since 2013.
And I'm going to go to the second page in the packet. Inspector, if you could tell me what the document is that I've just put up on the screen.
This is our standard notice of violations that's sent out to the owners once we issue violations.
And what's in this specific violation notice? If you want me to scroll, just let me know.
Would you please? There we go. So this violation issue was for a use registration permit as this is a mixed use property with the first floor being used as a psychic reading. There was no use permit on file and no commercial activity license was issued on file, which prompted me to issue a cease operations.
If I can ask you, does that mean for the property at 404 South 20th Street?
That's correct. Which is listed in the upper left-hand corner of the notice of violation.
And have you personally been to 404 South 20th Street?
Yes.
If you could tell us a bit of what you observed there.
As stated, it's a mixed-use property. The first floor is being used as a psychic reading. The second floor housed a apartment unit. At the time of my initial inspection, the upper floors were vacant, and the first floor where the psychic reading, it still held the commercial space was still being used as a psychic reading.
And I'm sorry, there's a bit of background noise. Is that?
You'll have to forgive me. What happened?
Oh, sorry.
My building is all concrete, and that's probably why you didn't hear me the first time. I have a coworker that's going to let the other people know that we're actually having a Zoom meeting for court. So
Okay,
that's
thank you very much,
some
Inspector.
of the noise.
Thank you.
thank you.
So, sorry, I'm gonna ask you, is the document that I'm showing on screen, this notice of violation, is that a document that LNI creates in the ordinary course of its business?
Yes, it is.
And who enters the information that goes into this document?
Where it says violations, right underneath, condition of violation and location, that would be done by me as the inspector.
And is this part of your regular duties with LNI?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to jump in the packet to page 19. If you could tell me what's this that I have up on the screen.
So this is an exterior photo taken by myself of the front of the property with signage showing that it is being used as a psychic reading.
And is this a good, or sorry, does this currently represent the property as it stands today?
From my last time that I was out at the property, it does.
When was
What
the last
date
time
of
you
that?
were at the property?
I don't have that photo in front of me currently. It should be listed within my notes.
Well, do you remember when you took this photo?
I was out on October the 8th to start to cease operations, so
Okay, I think this photo was taken before then, but it's okay if this is the condition of the property as you saw it on October 8th, you can authenticate that.
I can.
All right, and is this a property attached on both sides?
Are you referring to the black building there or?
Yeah, I'm referring to, are there buildings on either side that share a party
Yes,
wall with this
it's a
structure?
mixed use, yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to go to page 11 in the packet. Inspector, if you could tell me what this document is that I have up on screen.
This is our zoning permit use registration that's on file through our Atlas.
And is it for the property at 404 South 20th Street?
Yes, it is.
And who enters the information that goes into this permit?
That would be our zoning and use registration unit located at 1401 JFK in the concourse level.
And do they keep this type of document part of the regular course of their business?
They do.
All right, scrolling down a little bit in the document, what is the current use that this permit shows for the property?
Well, as shown in the exhibit, as of February the 3rd of 2006, it should be used as a first floor and I'm sorry.
Sorry, here, I'll zoom in a little bit.
Here we go.
Sorry, go ahead.
So it says first floor is should be vacant and second and third floor will house that one apartment unit as I stated in my testimony.
Oh, sorry, that I believe that on the permit is in the present use box, but the proposed use of present building box, what does that read?
Oh, I'm sorry. That would have been a first floor as a coffee shop serving light pastries. And once again, the second and third floor to house the one apartment unit.
And as of the stamp here on February 3rd, 2006 that you noticed, is the current use of the property coffee shop with apartment above?
No.
Sorry, what is the current use of, or sorry, what is the current legally registered use of the property?
Whatever the permit here shows, which is not a psychic shop.
And then yes, that would be my follow-up. What is the current use of the property?
Right.
Now, when an owner of a property changes the use, what do they need to do to legalize that new use?
Once they want to change the current use of a property, a use registration permit, a new use registration permit needs to be submitted. And
Sorry,
then,
inspect.
and
Okay,
then that applicate, I just paused for Mr. Whitson for a moment. Just wanted to make sure he.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
sorry, okay. So a new use, anytime you want to change the current use of a property, you have to submit a new use permit registration. That registration has to be assigned to a building and zoning inspector to do a follow-up inspection to see if that use may or may not be approved.
And let's say that the use is approved. What's the next step that the owner of a property would need to take in order to get the use up and running, get people in the property?
So depending on the plans examiner's recommendations, if it's changing from a one family to a multifamily, you might have to install a fire alarm system. Or if you're going to make the basement livable, you have to have 2 means of egress. It depends on what you propose for the property to be. And then, like I said, once the zoning examiner and building inspector do their investigation, you'll have to follow whatever steps that they recommend and then obtain permits and whatnot to change the building.
Do they need to apply for a certificate of occupancy?
That as well. I'm sorry, I did omit that. Yes. A new
And-
certificate of occupancy will determine the new use.
And what would the owner need to show, or what documentation or whatnot would they need to provide in order to get that certificate of occupancy?
An approved use permit.
So then what does L&I do with that application for the certificate of occupancy?
I'm really not following you, Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
How far you want to go with this?
So are there any specific inspections or safety checks that are part of the certificate of occupancy application process?
They are. And once, as I stated, the building inspector and zoning examiner will perform those follow-up investigations to see if the property can be approved in that current use that they would like to make it.
So what does the inspection entail?
So if it's like, as I stated, if they want a fire alarm system to be installed, a building inspector would then go out to see that the fire installation contractor, number one, first of all, is certified to do the work. Second of all, submitted proper permits and licenses to do the, rip out the current electrical, to put holes in the walls, to run new electrical lines, to install the strobes, the heating. It gets really entailed. And once again, that building inspector will do follow-up inspections to see if that fire contractor did the work correctly and submitted permits to do the work.
So let's say that someone has skirted that requirement, has started a new use and a new occupancy without getting the use permit, without getting the certificate of occupancy. Can L&I, or what can L&I say about the safety of that building, if anything?
Well, if you change the use of a property without doing the safety, we have the right to cease the property or state that you're not able to use the property in the current form that you're using it. And that's what will precipitate the cease orders being issued.
And in this specific case with 404 South 20th Street, what are L&I's concerns, if any, about this property?
Well, initially, it was the fact that it was being used as a psychic reading. As you see in the zoning permit submitted, that is not what's in the wording for use. And also, it's more of a commercial space with residential above, no fire alarm systems in place. This way, if somebody smoking or things of that nature on the commercial, could start a fire and then they don't know what's going on. There's no alarms going on. So that's.
Is it possible that the fire could spread through the party walls to the neighboring structures?
That's possible. It's possible.
All right, I'm going to jump to page 4 in the packet. Inspector, if you could just tell me what this is.
Yes. So this is a follow-up to my initial investigation. This is a notice of intent to cease that was delivered to the proprietor of the first floor, just to let them know that on October the 8th, a cease order will be issued. As you see, I did go on September the 21st to give the proprietor ample time to know that this will be going into effect on that date.
And here where it says,
Excuse me, Mr. Cohen,
yes,
may I interrupt when Mr. Crawford is saying the proprietor? As I see that, it says Vanjay, and I'm butchering probably the names and I'm having difficulty reading, Ding Lan. When you say, is that the owner or the proprietor of the business? Because the business, I believe, is a tenant in the property. I just want to confirm.
Can I jump in on this? So one goes to the owner and one goes to the tenant. I don't know if you scroll down.
yeah, I was about to, Inspector, if I scroll down to page 5 in the packet, what is this
Right.
document?
Does that answer your question, Mr. Pincus?
Well, I guess it
Because
does. It
if
says
you-
occupant, so I presume
Right.
that means the tenant. Okay.
And
Thank
that's what I gave to the tenant at that time.
you.
And
So
if you
you're-
scroll back up, you'll see that the owner also would get this one, which does not go to that address.
Okay, so
see
you're
that-
using the term proprietor to mean the owner of the property. Thank you.
Okay, well,
Alright.
well, I do have a question then. Would you, for the record, identify the names of the two owners, well, not ownership, but interested parties, both the owner and the tenant? Would you say who are they?
Based on your records.
Yes.
So is this addressed to me or Mr. Cohen?
Well, Mr. Cohen, as the attorney, and I'm asking, he can ask you to answer it.
I will ask the inspector to answer because the inspector is under oath.
So your question is the Mr. Janji,
Yeah, is that person the owner?
that is the owner.
Okay, is that John Yi G Land?
That's correct.
Okay, who is the tenant?
That would be Mr. Is it Mr. Pinto on the other?
Mr. Petro, I believe.
Mr. Petro, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Is that name on this form?
That would be on the occupant on the first floor.
I'll scroll down to page
Yes, Mr.
5. It just says occupants.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no name there.
There is a name, if I scroll to page 6, the emergency hearing appeal form, sorry, actually on page 7, John Petro is the appellant on this form.
Okay, Petro, okay. Now, Mr. Crawford, who's responsible for submitting an application for and securing the appropriate license to represent this change in use? Is that an owner's job or the tenant's job? Who does that? Who has the authority to do that?
The owner has a authority to approve or disapprove the use of his building. He's ultimately it's his property, not the tenant's.
Okay,
So if the tenant wants to do whatever the tenant wants to do, he still would have to go to the owner to let the owner say yes or no, I don't, yes, you can do this, or no, you cannot. Because
Okay.
ultimately,
And I
the
can-
owner, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I can add as a matter of law in Title A of the the administrative subcode of Title 4 of the Philadelphia Code, there is actually a requirement if you are a tenant applicant for a permit, that you have to have the owner's permission in order to proceed with your application.
okay. Now, is the owner involved in this matter at all?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, so this is an appeal from the tenant alone.
That's my understanding.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
And I just wanted to go back up to page 4 for a second. Under corrections needed, Inspector, you said that commercial property being used as residential. Could you explain what you meant by that?
Yes, at the time of my inspection, once you go to the rear part of the first floor occupancy, there's a bed there. And I was told by the tenant that, yes, they do stay there at times. And they have an ailing daughter, so sometimes they stay there. The majority of the times they stay there as opposed to leaving the property. So I'm sorry, Mr. Cohen?
No, sorry, so that's,
You want to go
that
ahead.
does explain what you meant by using a commercial property or the commercial portion of this property is residential. Are there different fire safety standards for a commercial property and residential?
Yes, and just as a order, a rule of law, any commercial space in the city cannot be used for living space. Because like I said, once again, if there's a fire or anything of that nature, this place was used for commercial, it should have been nobody there anyway as residential. There's no fire alarms in place, there's no fire extinguishers and nothing.
Actually, you mentioned fire alarms not being in place. Is that, actually, let me rephrase that question by going to page 28 in the packet. And I'll ask you, what is this document that I'm showing on my screen?
Another notice of violations that was issued on January the 1st, 2021.
I'll scroll down a little bit. What are the violations at issue in this notice of violations?
So this one would be for that sign that we saw in the photo provided that they needed to, I'm sorry, they needed
I'm sorry,
to obtain a permit for the sign or remove it.
and I'll
So they
scroll
didn't have
down.
a permit for the hanging sign. And the second violation was to provide a current fire alarm certification for inspector review. That's done when anytime there's a mixed use property where there's a commercial space on the first floor and residential on upper floors. The assumption automatically is that, okay, this fire alarm system should be in place in this property.
And to the best of your knowledge, was this January 1st notice of violation appealed to this board?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So jumping back a little bit to the use, the 2006 use permit, have there been any other use permit applications submitted to change the use of this property?
I believe in our system, it did show that some use permits were submitted. However, the process to approve the use, it never materialized.
I'm going to jump to page 20. Inspector, what is this document that I have on my screen?
Yes, that's the document. That's the application for building use permit. As
I'm
stated,
going to,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
And as stated where it says description of work, application to legalize use of existing commercial space in mixed use building being used for psychic reading.
And I'm just going to scroll down to the second page. And if you could just tell me what happened with this application.
As you see in the first log note, it stated that the application was abandoned.
And I'm going to scroll down to page 22. And if you could tell me what I'm putting up on page 22, Inspector.
Once again, this is another use building application submitted. And this description of work is for first floor commercial space being used as retail sales of tarot cards, and no sign was listed on that permit.
And scrolling down to the second page, what happened with this permit? Or with the permit application?
Right, and the notes show that the applicant permit, I'm sorry, it stated that the permit was rejected at that time.
Did the applicant ever return with the permit filing fee?
No, they did not.
Now I'm scrolling down to page 24 in the packet. And if you could tell me what this document is on screen.
And once again, this is another change of use permit that was submitted. If we go down to the bottom where it says work description, for use of psychic reading on first floor and 2 family dwelling units in an existing 3-story building, 1 unit on second and second to third level, and 1 unit on basement level, 3 signs on this permit.
And if I scroll down to this page, what happened with this permit application?
Once again, it was abandoned because the applicant never returned with the plans for signage and approval by the zoning inspector.
Thank you very, very much, Inspector. Is there anything else that you can recall about 404 South 20th that needs to be mentioned at this time?
No, sir.
Okay, Why don't we check with Mr. Petro and see if he has any questions? But before I do that, I just want to clarify for the record. Mr. Petro, what is your relationship to this space?
Excuse me?
What is your relationship to this space? Are you the tenant with the lease with the owner? What is this? Can you describe your relationship, your legal
I'm the
relationship?
tenant.
You have a lease with the owner?
Yes,
You also the operator of the psychic reading on the first floor operation business?
yes, me and my wife.
Okay, so this is both you and your wife.
Uh-huh.
Okay, alrighty. Do you have any questions of Mr. Crawford based on his testimony?
I'm not very educated and I don't understand very much, but I like to say that I put every penny.
Well,
that
let's-
I
no,
have
no,
into that
No,
business.
no, Mr. Petro, the
Yes,
question is, if you don't have any specific questions of Mr. Crawford based on his testimony, you will have an opportunity in a moment to sort of give your position. But I just want to make sure that if you have some questions, you can ask those, but that's okay if you don't.
I have
Then,
two questions, sir.
yes,
The zoning, it was up to the landlord. And the occupant's license was also up to the landlord. He knows we've been there. There was a psychic before me. And also the Cupcake Factory had to close down because he never followed up with the zoning and with the applicant, with the.
what is the question?
Excuse me?
What is the question?
The question is, there is no zoning and there is no applicant license because of the landlord didn't do it. That's what's stopping me from finishing up my business.
Okay, I think what you're doing is stating the fact. That's why we're in this hearing.
I'm
'cause there
sorry,
are-
sir, I'm not educated whatsoever, but like
Okay.
I told you, that's what stopped me from
Okay,
getting
let's-
what I was supposed to get.
Okay, we will get back to you in a moment then. Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Cohen, is
I
anything else?
apologize.
Just to move the exhibits that I ran over with Inspector Crawford into evidence. And Mr. Petro, if you would like me to show any exhibits that I just showed on my screen, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to stop screen sharing at this time.
I don't even know what I'm looking at, so I don't read and I don't write.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen
Okay,
and the city
Okay.
rests at this time, except for argument at the end.
okay, thank you. Mr. Cohen, the documents you've noted will be admitted to the record formally. Okay, Mr. Petro, is now your opportunity to several things. One, to express to us why if you have obtained the appropriate licenses, and if you haven't, why not?
Well, I couldn't because he didn't get the zoning and he didn't get the occupant's license.
And who was the
Once
he
he
that you're
would've got
referring to?
that, then I could have go ahead and get that. But I did get something that came from downstairs.
Who is the person that you're referring to?
A lady called, I think, I'm not sure, sir, but I did get a license for the business.
No, I'm
without
asking you a
his,
different question. You indicated earlier, you started your comments with statement that he did not get certain approvals. Who is the
it's the
he?
zoning and the occupant's license.
Who is
he did
that
not get.
person? Who
Excuse
is
me?
that person? Who is that
The
person?
owner of the building,
Who is that person? Give us his
the
name.
landlord. I don't know his name.
Do you have a lease with his name on it?
Yes, I have it with me right here. I don't read and write, sir.
You don't, who completed the appeal application?
They did it for me downstairs.
So it is not in your handwriting.
No, sir. I don't read and I don't write.
So I just want to be clear. So the signature on the forms are not your handwriting.
The signatures are mine, not the handwriting for the explanation.
So you are capable of signing your name,
Yes, sir.
but you're not capable of writing out a statement.
No, and I don't read very well.
What about your wife? Is she capable?
Same thing, sir.
Okay, let's just for a moment. I need to take a moment. Mr. Jefferson, do you have any advice for us?
Do we need to go?
Yeah, I think we do. Just for a moment, I'm going to pause today's hearing just for a moment. We need to have everyone except for the board and legal counsel to remain. Everyone else will be put in the waiting room. We just thank you. Ms. Spangler, we're okay? Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. We're back on the record. Mr. Petro, we want to resume with your testimony. You were beginning to tell us why your circumstance currently exists. So if you'd like to just sort of tell us in your own words why you haven't obtain the appropriate approvals that you need to operate your business?
Because the landlord doesn't want to get the zoning and he doesn't want to get the occupant's license.
Okay,
Since then, I had to lose signs that I paid for, that I had to take down so I could satisfy the city.
okay,
And I've been trying to do it on my own, but there's nothing happening, sir, because the landlord is not cooperating. I'm sorry to say it, he's a slum landlord. There's mice that I've been killing inside the place. I had to put all kinds of repairs. Even the glass window on the outside of the building, I had to install myself, sir.
okay,
The man is not helping his tenants. He only wants them to waste their money. And he's not helping us to get what was supposed to be gotten. All this
Okay.
time that passed, he never applied, sir. Last time the city was there and they was ready to vacate us, I offered the money to pay the back rent and for him to start all over again with him. So he could so we could not lose what we put into the store, into our business. I have everything in there, sir. My daughter's sick. She has autism. She has therapy coming there. My wife is sick. I am the only person right now that's looking for another apartment. I can't find it. It's very hard. This man is not giving us a break. He's not helping us whatsoever. I
okay,
want to pay him. I want to stay. I'm looking. There's not more I can do without his permission with the city. I'm trying to satisfy the city.
okay,
I took away 2 signs that I paid for and I had to trash them.
okay, thank you. A couple questions though. Mr. Petro, just want to clarify for the record. Do you also live in the building?
Yes, I do.
Which apartment do you occupy?
The storefront is a back is apartment, and then the front is only like 7, 8 feet of the business.
So you live on the first floor?
First floor and the bottom, the basement. I had to repair everything, sir.
Okay,
I did
just
very
want
good
to,
repairs.
okay. Mr. Cohen, do you have any questions of Mr. Petro?
Not at this time, no, thank you.
Okay. I know for the record, I believe there's a Mr. Young Yi in the room on the call on this video Zoom meeting. Is Mr. Yi, are you the owner of this property?
Sorry, Mr. Yi, you're on mute.
Might be here for the other one of the other appeals.
I just want to,
I'm mute. So can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Are you
I'm
the owner of
Yang
this
Ji.
property?
Huh?
Are you the owner of this property?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you willing to join us and become part of the testify in this instance?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please, so you may be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give be the truth so help you God?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we do anything else, I just need to get a thumbs up from Mr. Jefferson.
He can testify as a witness. It's not his appeal.
Okay. Understood. Thank you. Mr. Yi, this is not your appeal, so you are not testifying in that regard, but you can be a witness in this matter. And I do have a few questions of you. Is there a reason why you have not proceeded to obtain the appropriate zoning and use change for that location?
Well, so many things has happened. First of all, too many complaints from the neighborhood or from the city for this current, John Patrick, for example, like highly, inside smoking, leave the trash in the sidewalk. And also, secondly, he didn't pay anything, even I paid all the utilities, he didn't pay anything from the February this year, so almost like 10 months, didn't pay
Okay,
anything.
so your testimony is that because of his actions, he's not a suitable tenant. And the second thing is because he has not paid his rent. That's why you have not chosen to submit the applications.
And also neighborhood, many of complaints.
Neighbors' complaints
And safety reason,
of
because
safety reasons. Okay,
he did many of repair without my permission.
okay. Now, when you rented the space to Mr. Petro and his family, did you understand at that time that you did not have the appropriate use permits for that use?
Well, I tell you the truth. So basically, when he moved in, actually, I don't know. I don't know. I never meet him before he moved in. I don't know where he got the key. Maybe from the province, the tenant. So this is why we don't have any, sign any legal rental lease before.
So
he
you do
moved
not,
in.
or is it your testimony that you don't have a lease with Mr. Petro?
Before he moved in, we don't.
Do you have a lease with him now?
I signed the lease at the beginning of this year and then it expired last month. So
Okay.
I don't want to renew.
But you signed a lease with him last month.
Yes, but this is already after he moved in, okay?
Okay. Now, does the lease identify the type of business that he would be operating on the first floor?
No, it said it's no smoker, it's business only, not for the, living space,
Business only, no living space.
no living space.
What kind of business is noted in the lease?
Well, it's a cycle reading.
And did you know that psychic reading was not permitted in that location?
Well, this is maybe it's my personal mistake or fully understand. I don't know yet. Before I signed this, so right now I know.
Okay. How long have you owned the building?
I got this, it's 2018, so it's almost 3 years. So
Okay.
it's just recently, not very long.
Okay. Just one moment. Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Yi?
I just want to,
No, thank you.
I want to confirm, Mr. Yi, when you spoke with Mr. Petro and he moved into the property and he began renovating the property, did you know what he was intending to use the property for?
I don't know. As I stated before, I never met John Patrick before he moved in, and I don't. And then I think I met him. He already lived there. So this is basically I want to state.
And did you know at any time that using the property for psychic reading is not permitted under the zoning code?
I don't know. This is after the John Patrick moved in.
Okay.
This is after he moved in.
Okay. Did you authorize, Mr. Yi, Mr. Petro to submit the appropriate applications for a zoning change?
I don't think so. I said, I don't want to give you any permit. I don't want to run it any further with you. I don't think I give any permit to him to apply
Okay.
for anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anything else from anyone else?
I just want to one more thing, the lease signed, the end beginning of this year is expired, so he don't have any lease.
Okay. The lease is expired. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any,
All right, thank you.
any question?
No, I think that's all that the board has.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just one moment.
Is it about time for closing argument?
Yes.
So just let me know.
Yes. It's all yours.
I understand that there are some landlord-tenant issues that are complex, but are not really at issue here. Without delving into those, the issue at the heart of this here is safety. It's the safety of the people who are in the property at 404 South 20th Street. And as Mr. Petro said, he's actually living in the commercial space in the basement and the first floor, part of the first floor of this property. You heard Inspector Crawford testify that that's not the way things are supposed to happen, that there's different fire safety requirements for a commercial space as for a residential space, and that this particular property does not have an inspected and certified fire alarm system. So it is not safe for Mr. Petro or his family, or God forbid, his sick wife and daughter to be in that space, or to use it as a residence, I should say. And you also heard from Mr. Yi saying a few things about the lack of a use permit for psychic readings at that property. I think it should be pretty apparent because there were at least 3 zoning permit applications submitted that failed to proceed for that property, that Mr. Yi was aware that this was a non-conforming use, that it was not a proper use of the property, and that the permit applications did not go through to change it to this use. And you heard from Inspector Crawford, that also means that there was no certificate of occupancy application submitted. There was no safety check done by L&I, no safety inspection to make sure that this space was safe for the use that it's currently being used for, the psychic on the ground floor and apartment above. So based on that, based on the lack of this safety inspection, based on the use that does not conform to the existing use, the lack of a certificate of occupancy, I think the cease is warranted. Also, the fact that there's no use permit and certificate of occupancy for psychic readings means that obtaining income from an unlawful or unpermitted use is not an emergency reason, is not a reason to stop a cease. He shouldn't be deriving that income from an unpermitted use in the first place, let alone one that potentially puts him and his family in danger.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Petro, do you have any final comments before the board makes a decision?
Yes, yes. I am not using it as a business anymore. I'm using it as a home. He gave me a lease. He knew what I was doing. He gave me that lease so I could get all these papers that I'm supposed to, but he didn't follow up, sir. Is that my fault? Why would he accept the money? Why would he accept all the repairs?
Okay, thank you. Well,
There's people living upstairs. They don't have an occupant's license either, sir.
okay, all right, thank you.
Noticed.
Okay,
It's a roadhouse, sir. It's full of mice. I've been cleaning mice out of there since I got there.
okay,
I've been in there since September,
okay,
last September. He's been accepting the rent. He gave me the lease to go get the paperwork, but he didn't file for the zoning. And I had to lose everything, sir, even the signs that I put on the outside.
okay. Thank you.
I'm just asking for some more time so I can get another place and I'll go. I put everything I have in there, sir. Walls I put, windows I put, water leaks I fixed.
Okay.
There's no heat. He didn't provide heat for the whole winter, sir, and he's accepting the rent.
Okay. And I guess, Mr. Cohen, what is the date of the cease operations?
I can bring that up on my screen, or I can just read it from the cease. The ceases became effective October 8th.
Okay.
According to the intent to cease paperwork.
Does that include the whole building or just the first floor in the basement?
I believe the whole building, because the lack of use permit for the
There's
whole
people living
structure.
upstairs right now.
So the people
Brand new
upstairs, the
tenants.
occupants would also be affected by the decision of the board.
And like I mentioned, sir, my
Okay.
daughter gets therapy there. She has
Okay,
autism
understood.
severe.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Okay.
sir.
No. With regard to appeal number HA-2021-004202, John Petro, 404 South 20th Street, we will poll the board. City affirm.
My vote is to affirm the city, but Mr. Petro, I want to say that I feel sorry for you under the circumstances, but unfortunately, if you now try to rent a space in the city for your business, what you need to do is make sure before you move in or sign a lease that that's a permitted use. That's permitted by the city code. And you didn't do that, whether you knew or not, you should have. And whether the landlord, because I'm not sure you've got the greatest landlord here, represented in what he told you, you may want to consult with a community legal services attorney if you're about to be evicted from the property. You may want to engage somebody who can represent you. There are attorneys who represent people who don't have the financial resources to pay for them, for their services.
I
So
appreciate that.
you go and consult with an attorney as this matter proceeds, if you get involved in some sort of a landlord-tenant matter with Mr. Yee. But I'm
Okay.
going to affirm the city under the circumstances.
Thank you. We have one.
City affirm.
Okay. And Mr. Petro, one final matter we should note for the record, our other board member, Mr. Pettit, had connectivity problems, so he was not able to observe most of the hearing, and he will not participate in the vote. We do have a quorum, and so the vote is currently 3-1, city affirmed. Mr. Petro, the vote of the board is to approve the city's action, to affirm the city's action based on the written codes, etc. We do not have the authority to change the code. We are bound by the code. So the city's position stands. Now, what you should do, as Mr. Pincus has suggested to you, you may want to consult with an attorney to get some advice if there's other action you think you should or need to take. So that's where we are at this moment. Thank you, everyone. This ends the hearing for today. We'd ask the board to remain for executive session. Thank you so much.